Marcus Thompson sat in his home office late one Tuesday night, finishing up some paperwork from his construction company. The large house was quiet, except for the soft hum of his laptop and the distant sound of his wife Diana's voice coming from their bedroom upstairs. At first, he barely noticed it, too focused on his spreadsheets and contracts. It was already past 11 p.m., and Marcus was about to call it a night when he heard Diana's laugh, not her usual warm laugh, but something different. Something secretive. He stood up from his desk, his joints cracking slightly after sitting for so long. At 45, he wasn't old, but long days at construction sites followed by hours at his desk were starting to take their toll. As he walked up the stairs to join his wife of 15 years for bed, Diana's voice became clearer. She was talking on the phone, which wasn't unusual, except for the late hour. Marcus paused on the landing, not meaning to eavesdrop, but something in her tone made him stop. "Yes, I know exactly how much it's worth," Diana was saying, her voice barely above a whisper. "The life insurance policy alone is $2 million. Marcus froze, his hand gripping the wooden banister. His heart started beating faster as he listened more carefully. "Marcus has no idea I know about all his accounts," Diana continued, unaware of her husband's presence just outside their bedroom door. "The construction company is worth even more than the life insurance. Once he's gone, it all comes to me." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. He leaned against the wall, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. This was Diana, the woman he had built his life with, the person he trusted most in the world. "How much longer do we have to wait?" Diana asked the mysterious person on the other end of the call. She paused, listening. "I know we need to be patient, but I'm tired of pretending. He's been working so hard lately, always stressed. Nobody would question it if something happened." Marcus felt his legs go weak. Sweat formed on his forehead despite the cool air from the central AC. In his mind, memories started flashing. Diana's recent questions about his life insurance, her sudden interest in his business operations, the mysterious calls she'd been taking in private. "Just think about it." Diana's voice dropped even lower, forcing Marcus to strain to hear. "In a few months, we could be living the life we've always wanted. No more pretending, no more waiting." There was another pause, followed by Diana's soft laughter. "Don't worry about Marcus suspecting anything. He trusts me completely. That's always been his biggest weakness." Marcus thought about the dinner they'd shared just hours ago. Diana had made his favorite meal, grilled salmon with roasted vegetables. She'd been extra attentive lately, always making sure he took his vitamins, preparing healthy meals, asking about his stress levels. He had thought she was just being caring. Now, every kind gesture of the past few months took on a sinister new meaning. "I should go to bed now," Diana said to her caller. "Marcus is probably still working downstairs, but he'll be up soon." There was a softness in her voice as she added, "Sweet dreams to you too. I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore." Moving as quietly as he could, Marcus descended the stairs, his mind racing. Every step felt heavy, like his feet were made of lead. When he reached his office, he closed the door silently behind him and sank into his chair. The laptop screen still showed his company's financial reports. The company he built from nothing, working his way up from a single truck and a handful of tools to one of the most successful construction firms in the state. Diana had been there through it all, or at least he thought she had been. Marcus stared at his reflection in the dark window. The successful businessman looking back at him seemed like a stranger now. How had he not seen this coming? How long had his wife been plotting behind his back? And most importantly, what was he going to do about it? He pulled out his phone, started to dial 911, then stopped. No, he needed proof first. He needed to be smart about this. If Diana could play a long game, so could he. Marcus Thompson, the man who built an empire from nothing, was not going to become another tragic headline. He had a different plan in mind. What he didn't know then was that his decision that night would set in motion a chain of events that would change not just his life, but the lives of everyone around him. The next morning, Marcus watched Diana prepare breakfast with new eyes. Her every movement now seemed calculated. As she poured his coffee with a warm smile, he wondered if she had poisoned it. When she kissed his cheek and asked about his plans for the day, he felt sick to his stomach. "I might be working late again tonight," Marcus said carefully, studying her reaction. "Oh, honey, you work too hard," Diana replied, touching his shoulder. "But that's what made you so successful, right?" Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Over the next week, Marcus began his secret investigation. He started by installing small cameras in their home while Diana was at her yoga class. He placed them strategically, one in the living room, one in the kitchen, and one in her home office. He felt guilty about invading her privacy, but then remembered her late-night phone conversation. He also hired a private investigator named James Chen. The investigator's first report revealed something interesting. Diana had been visiting a financial advisor named Robert Kane twice a month for the past 6 months. These visits weren't on her regular calendar. Mrs. Thompson has also been making regular calls to a burner phone. James told Marcus during their secret meeting at a coffee shop across town. The number changes every few weeks. Marcus remembered how Diana had recently suggested he increase his life insurance coverage. "For our security," she had said. He had agreed, thinking she was just being practical. Now the memory made his hands shake as he held his coffee cup. At home, Diana's behavior became more suspicious under his careful observation. She asked more questions about his work schedule, his business trips, and his meetings. Each question seemed innocent on its own, but together they formed a pattern. "Will you be taking the boat out this weekend?" she asked one evening as they sat watching TV. The weather's supposed to be perfect. Marcus noticed how she emphasized the word boat. He remembered her late-night phone conversation about something happening to him. Was she planning an accident? Through the hidden cameras, Marcus discovered Diana's secret routine. Every day at 2 p.m., when she thought he was at work, she would make a phone call from the garden. She always used different phones, but spoke to the same person. The cameras couldn't pick up her words, but her body language showed excitement, intimacy. One afternoon, Marcus left work early and followed Diana to a small cafe downtown. He wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, sitting far enough away that she wouldn't notice him. 20 minutes later, a man joined her at her table. He was younger than Marcus, maybe in his mid-30s, with the kind of looks that belonged on a magazine cover. Diana's face lit up when she saw him. Marcus watched as they talked for an hour, their heads close together. At one point, Diana reached across the table and held the man's hand. The sight made Marcus's chest hurt, but he forced himself to keep watching. He needed to know everything. That evening, Diana served Marcus his favorite meal again. As they ate, she asked about his upcoming business trip to Costa Rica. "Are you sure you have to go?" she said, looking concerned. "I worry about you traveling alone." Marcus noticed how her fingers tightened around her wine glass as she waited for his answer. He thought about the boat questions, the life insurance, the secret meetings, and the mysterious phone calls. Everything was falling into place, forming a picture he never wanted to see. "The trip's important," he said, forcing a smile, "but I'll be careful." Later that night, after Diana had gone to bed, Marcus sat in his office reviewing everything he had learned. His once perfect marriage was a lie. His wife was planning his death with her younger lover. The thought should have made him angry, but instead, he felt a strange calm. Marcus opened his laptop and began typing. If Diana wanted to play games with life and death, he would give her exactly what she wanted. But the game wouldn't end the way she planned. As he worked through the night, planning his own disappearance, Marcus thought about how 15 years of marriage could end like this. But he wasn't going to be the victim in this story. He was going to take control, and Diana would never see it coming. Marcus spent 3 sleepless nights planning every detail of his scheme. Sitting in his private office at home, surrounded by sticky notes and a large whiteboard, he carefully mapped out what he called Operation Ghost. The first step was creating a fake business trip to Costa Rica. Marcus called his most trusted employee, Michael Chen, who had been with the company since the beginning. After making sure Diana was out shopping, Marcus invited Michael to the house. "I need your help, but what I'm about to tell you might sound crazy," Marcus said, closing his office door. Michael sat quietly as Marcus explained everything: the overheard conversation, Diana's secret meetings, and his plan to fake his own death. "Are you sure about this, boss?" Michael asked, his face showing concern. "This is serious stuff." "I have proof," Marcus replied, showing him the private investigator's photos and playing some of Diana's recorded conversations. Michael's eyes widened as he listened. Together, they created a detailed plan. Michael would handle the company while Marcus was dead, keeping everything running smoothly. They set up a secret bank account where Marcus could access emergency funds without anyone knowing. The next part was trickier. Marcus needed to make his death look real enough to convince Diana, but leave no body to be found. He decided a boating accident would be perfect. He owned a small boat that he often took out alone on weekends. The Coast Guard needs to believe I'm really missing, Marcus explained to Michael, drawing diagrams. I'll leave evidence on the boat. My phone, some torn clothing, signs of an accident. The current will be strong that day, perfect for a body to be lost at sea. While Diana was at her yoga class, Marcus packed a secret suitcase with cash, clothes, and a new prepaid phone. He hid it in a storage unit across town, renting it under a fake name. He also rented a small apartment, paying 6 months in advance with cash. The hardest part was acting normal around Diana. Every morning, he kissed her goodbye. Every evening, he pretended nothing was wrong. He even began leaving his laptop open with fake emails about the Costa Rica trip where she could accidentally see them. The boat trip is scheduled for next Saturday, Marcus told Diana over dinner one night. Just a quick fishing trip before I leave for Costa Rica on Monday. Diana's face showed concern, but Marcus caught the quick flash of excitement in her eyes. Please be careful, honey, she said, reaching for his hand. You know I worry about you on that boat. Marcus squeezed her hand and smiled, thinking about the cameras recording every moment. He had already given copies of all the evidence to Michael and his lawyer, sealed in envelopes to be opened if anything happened to him, anything real, that is. The final piece of his plan involved technology. Marcus hired a computer expert to help him set up a system that would record everything in the house while he was gone. The cameras would upload to a secure cloud server that only he could access. He wanted to see Diana's true reaction to his death. 3 days before the planned accident, Marcus made sure to update his will, making it look like he was just being responsible before his business trip. He added a few special conditions that would only activate if he was proven to be murdered. Diana wouldn't see these until it was too late. The night before the boat trip, Marcus lay in bed beside his sleeping wife, studying her face in the darkness. She looked peaceful, beautiful, and completely dangerous. Tomorrow, she would think her plan had worked. She would think she was finally free to be with her lover and take everything Marcus had built. But Marcus had learned something from his years in construction. The best foundation is the one nobody sees until it's too late. His plan was the same. Every detail was checked and double-checked. Every escape route planned. Every piece of evidence secured. As he finally drifted off to sleep, Marcus thought about how different his life would be after tomorrow. He would be a ghost, watching his own funeral, seeing who really cried and who celebrated. It wasn't the life he had planned, but it was better than the death Diana had planned for him. Tomorrow, Marcus Thompson would die, but only long enough to catch the people who wanted him dead for real. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for a boating accident. Marcus woke up early, quietly gathering his fishing gear while Diana slept. He placed a gentle kiss on her forehead, knowing it would be the last time he would be this close to her. Be safe, Diana mumbled, half awake. Call me when you get back. I will, Marcus lied, his voice steady despite his racing heart. At the marina, Marcus prepared his boat like he had done hundreds of times before. But today was different. He carefully planted the evidence. His wallet placed in the cabin, his favorite hat with a small tear, and his phone in a waterproof case attached under the steering wheel. Everything had to look natural. 2 marina workers watched him leave, just as he planned. They would be witnesses to his departure. Marcus waved goodbye, steering his boat toward the open water. Once he was far enough from shore, he put the next phase of his plan into action. From a hidden compartment, he pulled out a duffel bag containing a change of clothes and his emergency supplies. The Coast Guard would find the boat in 3 hours after the GPS emergency signal activated. By then, Marcus Thompson would be someone else. He put on the scuba gear he had hidden on board the previous day. Underwater, he attached a small remote-controlled motor to the boat's rudder. This would guide the boat into deeper waters after he was gone. Then, he slipped into the ocean, leaving behind evidence of a struggle, scratches on the deck, a broken fishing rod, and drops of his blood from a small cut he made on his arm. Swimming underwater for 100 yards, Marcus reached a small speedboat he had anchored there the day before, hidden behind a cluster of rocks. He climbed aboard, quickly changed his clothes, and put on a wig and fake beard he had bought weeks ago. By noon, the Coast Guard received the emergency signal from Marcus's boat. They found it drifting empty, signs of an accident clear on the deck. The search began immediately, with helicopters scanning the water and rescue boats combing the area. Meanwhile, Marcus, now looking like a different person, docked his small boat at a private pier 30 miles away. He drove to his rented apartment in a car he had bought with cash, registered under a fake name. The local news picked up the story quickly. Successful business owner missing at sea. Marcus watched the coverage on his laptop, connected to the cameras in his house. Diana's performance was perfect, crying for the cameras, begging the Coast Guard not to give up the search. "My husband is a strong swimmer," she told reporters, tears streaming down her face. "He has to be alive somewhere." But when the cameras left, Marcus watched through his hidden cameras as Diana made a phone call from the garden. "It worked," she whispered into her phone, her tears completely gone. "The Coast Guard said with the current and time passed, they probably won't find the body. We just have to wait a few weeks before claiming the insurance." Marcus recorded everything, his hands steady as he typed notes on his laptop. He watched as friends and family came to comfort Diana, bringing food and offering support. She played the grieving widow perfectly, but now he could see through every fake tear and sad smile. The search continued for 3 days before the Coast Guard officially changed it from a rescue mission to a recovery operation. After a week, with no body found, the local papers ran stories about the mysterious disappearance of the successful businessman. From his small apartment, Marcus monitored everything. He watched Diana meet with his company's lawyers, asking about the insurance policies and the business succession plan. He saw her secret meetings with her lover, now moved to more private locations but caught on camera by his private investigator. Every night, Marcus added to his collection of evidence. He recorded Diana's phone calls, photographed her meetings, and documented every move she made. The hardest part wasn't the hiding or the watching. It was staying quiet when he saw how quickly she began to change things in their home, removing his pictures, rearranging his office. But Marcus knew patience was key. He had to wait for Diana to make her next move. The game wasn't over, it was just beginning. And this time, he was the one controlling all the pieces. 2 weeks after Marcus's disappearance, Diana Thompson sat in her lawyer's office, dressed in elegant black, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The performance was flawless, but behind her veil of grief, her mind was already counting the millions she would soon control. "Mrs. Thompson," the lawyer said, shuffling through papers, "we can begin the insurance claim process, but without a body, we'll have to wait 6 months before declaring your husband legally dead." Diana's hand tightened on her purse. 6 months? But surely, given the circumstances. From his hidden apartment across town, Marcus watched this meeting through his investigator's hidden camera. He had anticipated this delay, it was part of his plan. The longer Diana had to wait, the more mistakes she would make. That evening, Diana hosted a small gathering at the house. She called it a remembrance dinner, but through his surveillance cameras, Marcus watched it turn into something else entirely. After most guests left, her lover, David, stayed behind. They opened Marcus's favorite wine and sat in the living room Marcus had built with his own hands. 6 months isn't so long, David said, holding Diana close. "We've waited this long already." "I just want it to be over," Diana replied, taking a long sip of wine. "Do you know what I found today? He had invested in 3 new properties last year. 3 will be richer than we thought." Marcus recorded everything, his lawyer receiving encrypted copies in real time. But the next day brought even more revealing evidence. Diana visited Marcus's office at the construction company, demanding access to all financial records. Michael Chen, loyal to his real boss, played his part perfectly. Of course, Mrs. Thompson, but some files are password protected. Mr. Thompson was very careful about security. Diana's sweet widow act slipped for a moment. "I'm his wife. I have the right to know everything about his business." That afternoon, she made a critical mistake. Thinking she was alone in the house, Diana called someone from a new burner phone, but Marcus's hidden microphones caught every word. "Listen, we need to speed this up," she hissed. "The insurance company is stalling, but once they declare him dead, everything transfers to me. The company, the properties, Everything. Just like we planned last year when you helped me change his will. Marcus sat up straighter in his apartment. This was new information. He immediately sent a message to his private investigator to look into any changes made to his will over the past year. The investigation revealed something shocking. Diana had indeed tried to alter the will, but Marcus's loyal lawyer had quietly kept the original, sensing something wasn't right. This discovery was the piece Marcus had been waiting for. Meanwhile, Diana's behavior grew bolder. She began emptying Marcus's closets, donating his clothes to charity. She redecorated their bedroom, removing every trace of his existence. To the outside world, she was just a widow trying to move forward, but Marcus saw the truth in every calculated move. 1 month after his disappearance, Diana organized a memorial service. Marcus watched through the cameras as she stood in front of friends and family, telling tearful stories about their life together. Her acting was convincing. She even wore the necklace he had given her for their 10th anniversary. But later that night, after everyone left, she took off the necklace and dropped it in the trash. "Good riddance," she muttered, pouring herself another glass of wine. In his apartment, Marcus added this video to his growing collection of evidence. His wall was covered with photos, documents, and transcripts, a paper trail of Diana's true nature. But he wasn't ready to reveal himself yet. There was still one more piece of evidence he needed. The next day, Diana made her boldest move yet. She called a company meeting and announced she would be taking over as CEO. "It's what Marcus would have wanted," she said, her voice breaking at just the right moment. But as she left the meeting, she didn't notice Michael Chen quietly taking notes, or the small camera in his tie pin recording everything. She didn't know that every word she spoke was being carefully documented, building a case that would soon bring her whole world crashing down. Marcus Thompson watched and waited. The time for his return was getting closer, but first, he needed Diana to show everyone exactly who she really was. 3 months after Marcus's disappearance, the evidence against Diana grew stronger each day. From his small apartment, Marcus had created what he called his truth wall. Dozens of photographs, transcripts, and documents connected by red strings, all proving Diana's deception. One particularly damning piece of evidence came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Diana hosted what she called a business dinner at the house, inviting several board members from Marcus's company. But after the official dinner ended, 3 people stayed behind: Diana, her lover David, and Thomas Reed, the company's senior accountant. Through his hidden cameras, Marcus watched an extraordinary scene unfold in his former home office. "Look," Diana said, spreading papers across Marcus's desk, "I need access to these offshore accounts. Marcus must have left passwords somewhere." Thomas Reed shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Mrs. Thompson, these accounts require specific authorization, without Mr. Thompson's direct approval." "Thomas," David interrupted smoothly, "we all know Marcus isn't coming back. Diana is his wife. She has every right to these funds." Marcus leaned closer to his laptop screen, recording everything. He watched as Diana opened his desk drawer and pulled out a bottle of expensive scotch, his favorite brand. "Think about your position, Thomas," Diana said, pouring 3 glasses. "Help me with this, and I promise you'll be rewarded generously. Fight me, and well." She left the threat hanging in the air. Marcus immediately sent the recording to his lawyer. This was attempted blackmail, clear as day. The next morning brought even more revelations. Marcus's private investigator discovered that David wasn't just Diana's lover. He was a disbarred lawyer with a history of financial fraud. He had been working at a local gym when he met Diana 18 months ago, starting their affair and their scheme. "Look at this," James Chen, the investigator, told Marcus during their weekly meeting at a quiet cafe. He showed Marcus documents proving that David had helped several other women claim their husbands' insurance policies under suspicious circumstances. Marcus added these documents to his wall. The pattern was clear. Diana and David had been planning this for over a year, but they had made one crucial mistake. They underestimated Marcus's intelligence and resources. Through the surveillance cameras, Marcus watched Diana grow more frustrated as weeks passed. She made more mistakes, had more angry outbursts. During one particularly revealing moment, she threw a framed photo of their wedding against the wall. "Why is everything so complicated?" she screamed at David. "The insurance company keeps asking questions." The board won't give me full control. Even that idiot Thomas won't help us access the accounts. Patience, baby, David soothed her. Just a few more months, and it'll all be ours. We thought of everything. But they hadn't thought of everything. They didn't know about the cameras recording their every move. They didn't know about the loyal employees reporting their actions. And most importantly, they didn't know that Marcus was very much alive, watching everything. The final piece of evidence came unexpectedly. Late one night, Diana accidentally left her laptop open while taking a shower. Thanks to the spyware Marcus had installed months before his death, he gained access to her private emails. There, he found messages dating back 14 months, detailing her plan with David to get rid of Marcus and take over his fortune. Once he's gone, one email read, "We'll have everything we ever wanted. The house, the company, the money, they'll all be ours. No one will suspect anything. Boating accidents happen all the time." Marcus printed every email, adding them to his wall of evidence. Now he had everything he needed: proof of conspiracy, attempted fraud, blackmail, and the premeditated plan to end his life. Diana and David had created a perfect paper trail of their own guilt. As he stood looking at his wall of evidence, Marcus knew it was almost time to reveal himself. Diana had organized a memorial service for the following week, marking 4 months since his disappearance. She planned to announce her full takeover of the company there, in front of everyone they knew. Marcus smiled as he looked at the invitation. It would be the perfect setting for his return, but first, he needed to make one final preparation, something that would make his resurrection even more dramatic than his death. The memorial service was held in the grand ballroom of the city's most expensive hotel. Diana had spared no expense, filling the room with white flowers and large photos of Marcus throughout his life. Over 200 people attended: family, friends, business associates, and local media. Diana stood at the podium wearing an expensive black dress, her eyes glistening with perfectly timed tears. "Marcus was not just my husband," she began, her voice trembling. "He was a visionary, a leader, and the love of my life." In the back of the room, a man in a dark suit and sunglasses slipped in quietly. No one paid attention to him. All eyes were on Diana's emotional speech. As we move forward, Diana continued, "I want to announce that I will be taking full control of Thompson Construction. It's what Marcus would have wanted." David sat in the front row, nodding supportively. Thomas Reed, the accountant, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Michael Chen, Marcus's trusted employee, checked his phone and smiled slightly. "And now," Diana said, "I'd like to share a special video tribute to Marcus." The lights dimmed, and a large screen lowered behind her. The video began playing, but it wasn't the tribute Diana had prepared. Instead, the screen showed Diana and David in Marcus's home office, planning his death. "Once the boat accident happens," Diana's voice echoed through the ballroom speakers, "we'll be rich." The audience gasped. Diana spun around, her face draining of color as she watched herself on the screen. More clips played: her secret meetings, her threats to Thomas Reed, her celebrations after Marcus's death. "Turn it off," Diana screamed, but no one moved. "I don't think we should," a familiar voice said from the back of the room. The man in sunglasses stood up and walked toward the podium. Diana's hands flew to her mouth. The audience murmured in shock. Standing before them, very much alive, was Marcus Thompson. "Hello, Diana," Marcus said calmly. "Miss me?" David jumped up and tried to run, but 2 police officers who had been posing as guests blocked the exits. The room erupted in chaos as Marcus walked to the podium. "For the past 4 months," Marcus announced over the commotion, "I've been gathering evidence of my wife's conspiracy to murder me and steal my company." He gestured to the screen, which now showed a wall of evidence: photos, documents, and email transcripts. Diana's perfectly controlled facade crumbled. "Marcus, I can explain." "Explain the life insurance policy you took out behind my back," Marcus asked. "Or the offshore accounts you tried to access. Or maybe explain your emails planning my boating accident with your lover." The police moved through the crowd, heading toward Diana and David. Michael Chen handed them a thick folder of evidence, copies of everything Marcus had collected. "You see, Diana," Marcus continued, "while you thought I was dead, I was watching everything. Every meeting, Every phone call, every attempt to steal what I spent my life building. Diana's tears were real now, but not from grief. How did you? How long? Since the night I heard you planning my death on the phone, Marcus replied. You should have been more careful about talking in the house. Those walls had ears, and cameras, and microphones. The police reached the podium. As they handcuffed Diana, she struggled, her perfect hair falling across her face. You can't prove anything. Marcus smiled. Actually, I can prove everything. Your co-conspirator David's history of insurance fraud, your altered will attempt, your blackmail of Thomas Reed, everything. The audience watched in stunned silence as Diana and David were led away. Marcus turned to address the crowd, his voice strong and clear. I apologize for this dramatic scene, he said, but I needed everyone to see the truth. My company will continue under my leadership, stronger than ever. As the police cars drove away outside, Marcus's friends and colleagues surrounded him, offering hugs and congratulations on his incredible return. But Marcus felt no joy in his victory, only sadness for the years of marriage that had been a lie. Still, he had survived. He had protected his life's work. And most importantly, he had exposed the truth. As reporters crowded around him asking questions, Marcus Thompson stood tall, ready to begin the next chapter of his life, this time with his eyes wide open. 6 months after the dramatic memorial service, Marcus Thompson sat in the courthouse, watching as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. The trial had lasted 3 weeks, with every piece of evidence carefully examined and every witness testimony scrutinized. Diana sat at the defendant's table, looking much different from the confident woman who had planned his death. Her designer clothes were replaced by simple business attire, her perfectly styled hair now plain and straight. Next to her, David looked equally defeated, his charming smile nowhere to be seen. In the case of the state versus Diana Thompson and David Mitchell, the judge began, on the charges of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted fraud, and embezzlement, this court finds the defendants guilty on all counts. Marcus watched as Diana's shoulders slumped. The judge continued, Diana Thompson is hereby sentenced to 15 years in state prison. David Mitchell, given his previous record and role in this conspiracy, is sentenced to 20 years. As the bailiff led them away, Diana turned one last time toward Marcus. Their eyes met briefly, but Marcus saw no remorse in her gaze, only anger at being caught. She had never loved him. That was clear now. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered around Marcus. How does it feel to see justice served? One asked, holding out a microphone. This isn't about feelings, Marcus replied calmly. It's about truth and consequences. Everyone must learn that you can't take shortcuts in life or try to profit from someone else's death. In the months that followed, Marcus rebuilt his life. He threw himself into his work, expanding Thompson Construction into new markets. The publicity from the trial, though uncomfortable, had actually brought in new clients who admired his intelligence and resilience. One sunny morning, while Marcus reviewed plans for a new project, Michael Chen knocked on his office door. Boss, there's someone here to see you, Michael said. Another person who went through something similar. Marcus had started receiving these visits after his story made national news. People who suspected their partners were planning something similar reached out for advice. He never turned them away. The visitor was a woman named Sarah, whose husband had tried to fake her death for insurance money. Thanks to Marcus's story, she had recognized the warning signs and gathered evidence before it was too late. Your case saved my life, she told Marcus. I knew what to look for because of you. This gave Marcus an idea. A month later, he established the Thompson Truth Foundation, an organization dedicated to helping people identify and escape fraudulent schemes and dangerous relationships. He hired private investigators to work pro bono for those who couldn't afford help. Sometimes the people closest to us are the most dangerous, Marcus told a group during one of the Foundation's seminars. But that doesn't mean we should stop trusting everyone. It means we should trust wisely. The Foundation quickly gained national attention. Marcus appeared on talk shows, wrote a book about his experience, and worked with law enforcement to improve fraud detection. His story became a cautionary tale, but also one of hope and resilience. 1 year after the trial, Marcus stood in his office, looking out at the city skyline. The company had doubled in size, the Foundation was helping hundreds of people, and he had finally removed the last of Diana's belongings from his home. Michael entered with the daily reports. "The new project in Phoenix is ahead of schedule," he said, "and the foundation just helped its 100th client." Marcus nodded, feeling proud not of the revenge he'd gotten, but of the good that had come from his ordeal. "You know, Michael," he said, "Diana thought she was destroying me, but she actually made me stronger." That evening, as Marcus drove home, he passed the marina where he had staged his disappearance. He no longer kept a boat there. Some memories were better left behind. Instead, he had learned to build new memories, help others, and trust again, carefully and wisely. The story of Marcus Thompson became more than just a tale of betrayal and justice. It became a lesson about resilience, about rising above darkness to create light for others. He had turned his pain into purpose, his betrayal into a beacon of hope for others. As he walked into his house that night, Marcus smiled. Diana had tried to end his story, but instead, she had only started a new chapter, one that was helping write better endings for others.